Gritty is staying in it. Gritty is not running from difficulty. Gritty is understanding everything's on the other side of hard. And if you want to build this muscle of grittiness, which is like resiliency, you get more resilient as you endure, and this grittiness in you, which means you could handle it better. So it's like anything. Let me go to just a simple example. When I first got in the cold plunge at 5 degrees, of course, what's the first thing your body wants to do? Get out. It's like, this is too hard, fight or flight, get out. The more you train in this, the more your body's like, oh, this is cold, but I understand this now. Like, I don't like this, but I understand it. We're going to get through it. And then it doesn't become as hard, which is how you increase your minutes. This is a metaphor for life, that when you are in something, in order to develop this muscle, you have to get used to being in it. So difficult conversations. This is really hard for people. Using your voice when you have to negotiate something. It's asking for what you want, but it's uncomfortable until you keep trying. Public speaking, when people have to speak. Well, the only way you get better is by putting yourself in the situation of speaking. You don't develop that mental resiliency and grittiness unless you are in the situations. So again, to build grit and that muscle, you have to put stress and strain on it.
Welcome my guest, Coach Dar. She's a board-certified occupational therapist, leadership advisor, and mental skills coach. Coach Dar works with some of the top CEOs in the country and high-profile professional athletes worldwide. In her book, The Art of Bouncing Back, Coach Dar shares her proven methods that any business professional can use to bounce back from setbacks and thrive even in the toughest of times. Coach Dar blends a knowledge of psychology, life experience, and her personal mission in life to inspire greatness in everyone she meets. The result, individuals, corporate executives, and professional athletes discover their own personal missions, individual gifts, and set their sights on the goals that they have thought impossible. It is her unique style and approach during transformational seminars, high-impact speaking engagements, and executive one-on-one sessions that has helped countless people say no to the status quo and raise the bar in their lives and break through adversity to reignite their fire. Okay, I have the honor of bringing on Coach Dar. I am so excited to share this space with you, Darlene. I'll just call you Darlene, but Coach Dar, everybody knows her as. And this is just, it's so beautiful to share this space with somebody that I not only highly respect, but I also very much admire. I admire how you show up. You're so genuine. And that was my first experience of you. As you know, we first met each other at Brooke Hemingway's event called Align, and you were one of the first speakers. And your energy just lit up the room. And I know like your presence and how you were presented on stage was being lifted up by one of your good friends that is about, I don't know, 6'7", I guess. Yep. And just your delivery of your speech and just your generosity, your authenticity was just magnetic. And I just want to really acknowledge that you really made an impact. And I could tell so many people are just moved by the message you shared. So thank you.
Oh my gosh, that was so special. That whole day, us all being together. And that's like such a testament for life, is that when it's quality time, it transcends like time. And so it's not about quantity, it's about quality. And everyone there was such quality that it made it so special.
Such a beautiful event. And I know I'm just going to give a straight shout out to Brooke Hemingway. Like if nobody knows Brooke Hemingway, which she's been on my podcast, go listen to her episode. But like, she's just such a beautiful human and she lights up the room as well. I think everybody that stepped on that stage just lit up the room, but she just really created a very dynamic, really empowering powerful event that I think anybody should be in this space. And there's another one that's going to be next year. She usually does it at the top of the year in January. So stay tuned for that. But definitely, I encourage anybody to check out Align Limitless, because it was just a powerful event. And like you said, just the people in the room really just made the difference. So yeah, big shout out to Brooke. But so Darlene, or actually, I'm just going to call you Coach Dar,
Yeah,
because I know
everyone
that's what
does.
most
I only when I
yeah.
got in trouble was I called Darlene.
Oh, that's so funny. Okay, so I'm definitely not going to do that. So, yeah, Coach Dar. So, I want people to really know your story of what brought you into the message you share today, because there is a reason why you share this message so powerfully, and also as many people as you help today. So, where did it all begin?
You know, it really started with, I grew up on the East Coast in a little town in Connecticut, coastal town, and my whole family's between Connecticut, New York, New Jersey. They're literally the Sopranos, all on the East Coast. They don't leave. So if that gives any background to my background, but we have these East Coast Italians. Here's what happened: is we didn't have a lot growing up, but we had so much love. We had community. And it was such a setup for my life. I had no idea. And part of that setup was my dad. My sister was 4 years older. And then my parents, they were going to have another child, and they thought they were going to have a boy. And I was supposed to come out in January, and I came out on Christmas, and I was a girl. And the joke is my dad goes, "What the hell?" And I only say that because my dad was very athletic. So teeing up what I'm about to say is, I coach now presently. I'm the mental conditioning coach for a lot of athletes in the NHL, the NBA, NFL, all the leagues, all the pros. And I advise CEOs and world leaders. And so I've tracked patterns. I'm an occupational therapist by background. That's what I went to school for. So neuroscience and neuropsychology is my whole board certification, my background, my education. And so while I'm coaching, yes, I'm coaching, but I'm a therapist by background. And I tee this up because I never expected to be in sports, but my father had me playing every sport under the sun, and he would actually watch film. He taped the games and then rewatch film, basketball, football. And so I'd watch film with him. And I had no idea that this would tee up where I am today. But now when I'm with the pros, I watch back film with them, and I could watch any sport, and we could break down the patterns that we're seeing and help them through things. So I had no idea that, where I started would be where I am today. But there's a parallel thread, is that there's been a giftedness that I have of really being able to look at someone, break down where they are in a good way, and help them create the plan for going forward, and helping them see what the impossible is and then going after it. The other part of this is I had no idea I would be doing and needing the same principles I've given everyone for myself, because when I was 25, I was married at the time, working at the hospital, taking care of stroke and traumatic brain injured patients. And I'd gone to see a chiropractor because I had hurt my back, thought I'd get an adjustment. But when they adjusted my neck, they ripped the vertebral artery to my brain. And I did not know I was bleeding. And this set up for major pivots in my life, because it left me with a blood clot that if it dislodged any day, I would die. That's what I was told at 25. And I had wanted to start a family then. I thought, I'd have a child or children, and they'd be in sports, because sports was a big part of our life. And that's not how it went. And I am getting up a divorced, was told obviously this diagnosis, and it fueled me, Erica, in a way that I was like, well, sugar, if I could die any day, then what fear do I have? I mean, I'm going to fear what someone thinks? Absolutely not. As long as I'm doing what I know is at my highest and best use for the service of others. So it already primes me to put me in a position that I'm doing the best that I can. I'm not going to worry about the opinion of someone else. I look for something higher than me. And it teed me up for everything that I've done now, which I wish I could say there's been no adversity, but it's been 3 strokes later now. My last one was just a few years ago. I've lost, had to go through the death of both of my parents, who were my best friends. And so I ended up writing, even before my father passed, but writing this whole process called The Art of Bouncing Back, because I have to help people and leaders in this country and in the world, and these professional athletes. I have to help them often bounce back from something or get them to the next level. And then I've had to do it now with 3 strokes, with obviously losing my parents and anything else that we all go through, which is, if you're an entrepreneur and you're listening, or even you've been in business and you might have just got laid off, or you had to pivot and change jobs during, the pandemic, we all have to learn how to stay agile and bounce back. So I wrote the book for that. But that's been the journey. And oftentimes people write from where they have come from, experience. And that's really why I'm writing from this.
Oh my gosh. Well, there's a couple questions
Yeah.
I have from this. And just out of curiosity, because that's insane, your experience with the chiropractor and that
Mhm.
happened. I'm just curious, out of curiosity,
Yeah.
asking you this. How often does this happen?
So it actually is more than you would think.
Wow.
But it's still very rare, so to speak, but the numbers are pretty high. And I since this has happened, I every year hear of a handful of people, because people write in, that they either didn't make it, that was their brother, their sister, their husband, or someone, or it's someone who had a stroke like I did. So it is very real. And I was just talking to someone
Mm.
last night. They don't even have to adjust you that aggressively anymore with the new technology. They could still get that cervical
Mm.
adjustment without torquing the neck in the way that they used to. Because when you go back and you watch
Wow.
videos, if you watch YouTube videos on it, it is such a massive torque that, of course,
Yep.
and I remember the neurologist going, "Did you get in a car accident? Was there trauma to your neck?" I'm like, "No." And then I'm like, "Oh, yes."
Wow. It's crazy because you work with athletes. So I imagine they go to chiropractors to get
Hmm.
adjusted. So I mean, what you've been through, I mean, 3 strokes. Like, it's miraculous how you've, persevered, and obviously here today speaking to us, considering, and then
Yeah.
also what you've endured, losing your best friends, your parents, and all the things. And the one thing that's common thread between everybody is adversity, that
Hmm.
in our life we'll always experience some form of adversity. Obviously, there's a pendulum of how, there's the small t trauma, there's the big T trauma, and then there's small adversities, and then there's really big ones like the ones you
Hmm.
experience. And so that's the common thread. The one thing I'm wondering, since you, in the midst of all that you were doing, you were able to work through what you were enduring. So I'm curious, was that something that your parents taught you, or how did you learn this? Because you were a therapist at this point. So was it something like your mental
Yeah.
fortitude that you worked on
Yeah.
yourself and that you were able to use at the time you needed
At
it?
25, I will say just the resiliency and the grittiness to keep going came from for sure how I grew up. My mom had, her first open heart surgery at 40 and suffered like, she went through 11 surgeries before she passed, and she was still got up, still went to work. She was a barber. She'd be like, if God still has me here, then I'm supposed to be at that barber shop to help the person. And I said at the end of it, I remember going, at my mom's eulogy, her fades at the barbershop, like the line was not as straight, but people came back to her from all over because she just had this infectious energy. So I learned this through watching, but I will say at 25 versus just a few years ago with the 3rd stroke, which was the worst, I'm so much more equipped now than I was at 25. So I had some of the knowledge. I did not have life experience. I did not have all these principles I wrote locked in. And I actually masked more than I let on of what I was dealing with, because I was like, well, hold on. My patients, they have paralysis. I don't. I had vestibular problems, balance, eye, headaches, and I would just try to push it away almost, because I thought I'm supposed to be the caregiver, not receive the care. And then I thought, well, I don't want to be seen, this is my 25-year-old mentality, is weak because I'm supposed to be taking care of them. And so it was just,
Mm.
I would not say I was equipped. I was resilient to get through it, but I was not equipped like I am now, which is how I could write the principles after helping 100,000 people in my career in their life. I have much
Yeah.
more knowledge.
Yeah. Well, actually, I think that's a good thing to bring up, is so many people, especially in your position, as you said, you were actually in the position where you're helping those people with extreme odds against them, where they needed
Yeah.
hope, but yet you were struggling internally,
Hmm.
possibly with your own
Yeah.
issues, and
Yeah.
suppressing them or
Yep.
masking them. So, how, knowing what you know now and what you teach, obviously, a lot of people I've learned a lot about this just through my own process, and then also hearing other people's stories, how so many people will gloss over grief and they won't go
Yeah.
through the process
Yep.
of grief, because there is a
Mm-hmm.
process and there's a reason for the process,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's a way for us to heal through
Mm-hmm.
our struggles. So what would you say to, knowing what you knew later in your life, did you have to return to those things that you suppressed or masked or ignored?
1,000%, yes. And by the way, it's come in waves. And I will tell you that, um, sorry, if a phone call was just coming in, I apologize. But I will tell you that it came in a wave at one point in my life, a few years after, and I felt what it felt like to have sadness and depression. And it was like 3 weeks where I could not get going. I mean, I literally, my sister would come in, she's like, Dar, God gave you this gift to get out there to help people. I'm like, listen, I understand this, but I literally don't have it in me to get up. And I'm like, I'm the person that's supposed to motivate everyone and give them the tools, but I literally couldn't pull from the tank. And for me, faith is important. And I was like, listen, God, if you want me back out there, then you're going to have to give me the tools. And sure as
Mm.
sugar, literally, I had a BlackBerry then, and it was this devotional that would come Monday through Friday, and it was Saturday, and my BlackBerry was buzzing. And when you're not where you want to talk to anyone, I thought, who is calling me? I'm going to throw this phone and hide it. And so, but it came back and it said, I did not give you new life to isolate or go back to old ways. And that was the very thing and last thing my
Wow.
sister said to me before she walked out the door. So I got up the next day,
Yeah.
Sunday, I go to a non-denominational church. I went to church and I was like, God, let's go. And it like reset me, and I've been on fire. I call it lit from within ever since. But grief still
Beautiful.
comes in these waves. I'll go through it, but I don't stay in it. It's not like quicksand for me. And I pray that doesn't happen again, but these tools that I've used and created really, really help. And so people do need to deal with their emotions because they're going to come up. And if you don't, they come out in different ways. And honestly, when my father just passed, I was in the middle of finishing my book. So there was a cadence that I couldn't stop if I tried. And all of a sudden, I started to get where I couldn't breathe. Like I literally couldn't
Mm.
breathe. And I'm trying to get my full breath, but I couldn't. And I'm sitting there going, this has got to be anxiety that I'm not dealing with, like grief I'm not dealing with. And so the more I dug into it, the better it got. And then I had to shift my schedule a little bit. But, sometimes like the basketball players I coach, I had a player that lost this family member and he couldn't deal with the grief because he's in the middle of season. And I was in
Yeah.
the middle of that. So you have to find time at some point. And, to be honest, this July, I'm going to take time off because I
Great.
never really sat and just even took time. So you do have to make time for this.
Absolutely. I think it's such an important part to pull out, that I think that maybe at the time, as you had a deadline for
Yeah.
your book, or
Mhm.
your uh, not client,
Like,
wrong word,
yeah.
the team member, or teammate that was
Hmm.
playing in the middle of the
Yeah.
games, like he couldn't just give up on
Yeah.
that. But after that, at least he could set time aside, like you are going to
Yep.
do in
Yeah.
July, and sit with it. And I think
Hmm.
it's so important to feel through it,
Hmm.
right? Is letting yourself experience and feel all the feelings you have
Yeah.
to, so you could finally heal it, like you said, or it's going to manifest in another way. And I want people to hear that. But I do know, and I want to pull out, like, one thing that's really challenging, and I've dealt with depression in my earlier years, when you're in it, when you're like really in it, especially when it comes to depression, anxiety, deep grief and pain, it's very hard to pull yourself out of it. So what
Mhm.
would be like the first tools you would recommend to get to the point where you at least, I don't know, put your shoes on, put clothes on
Yeah.
instead of your pajamas, like
Yeah.
actually get outside in the sunlight because you just want to be in a dark room. I'm just like,
Yeah.
this is like the extreme cases that you're deep in depression. So what would be the first steps you
So
would recommend?
even in the first principle, it's called embrace the suck. Because when you have someone that could come alongside you and sit with you in that moment, you literally get and you have a conversation, which someone at that point in your life could help, this would be great. And if you need to do it for yourself, you do it for yourself. But you have to get to the point, like I'm just going to give the example of my father. it was the last thing I wanted to lose my father because I just lost my mother. And so I was like, I sat there for a second. I'm in the middle of deadline, and I had already written principle one, which was or embrace the suck. I was far into the book by that point. I think all 9 principles were written out, and I actually went back to it. I'm like, Dar, we have to embrace this for what it is right now, because we cannot change what we cannot change. So I'm not saying I'm just going to positive Pollyanna this. That's why I wrote embrace the suck. It was sitting there and actually saying to my friend, this just sucks right now. Like, I am so upset. I don't like this. I'm trying to understand it. Like, everything that you could say. And I'm like, and I just need to talk about it. We need to embrace it so I could accept it for what it is, because I'm going to have to move forward, especially where I am. And you have to remember, sometimes it takes something bigger than you when you are in that spot to get up. And I was like, Dar, the reason you have to get up and you cannot sit in this right now is because you have something that has to get out to the world. So you have to fight for this. You have to dig from within. This is bigger than you. You will get the moment to grieve this. You will get the moment to go through this. But like, you have got to, I'm giving myself literally a pep talk. And by the way, at this time, I'm still giving speeches around the world, literally world, not even country, elevating your mindset, resiliency. And I'm like, well, Dar, let's dance. You got to go. Like, you've got to pull, because it's not stopping, and you will deal with this, but we've got to embrace it. Because if I try to discount it for what it is, like, it's not bringing my father back. This hurts. But I was allowing myself to just be in it, to embrace it for what it was, and then try at that moment to attach for my why power. Why do I need to get up? Because I could not will myself. Like, if I was to just sit with my willpower, I would have been like, peace out. I'm laying in bed. You guys, I'll see you next year.
Yeah,
But that couldn't
absolutely.
happen. So I had to dig deep on, hey, if both of my parents were here right now, they'd be like, excuse me, but get your ass up. Get up, keep going. You have a mission. You're not here just for yourself. I know this is hard. Cry when you need to cry, celebrate when you need to celebrate, and let's keep moving forward on the why. Like, reframe this so you could use it for fuel. And that's what got me out of the holes.
So powerful, using the why power over the willpower. And I think that's a lot of things that people say, like, somebody that hasn't gotten where they want to go, they'll be like, if I could just have motivation like her, if I just had the willpower like her, like the drive, but they don't think about what is
Yeah.
driving them to do the darn
Yeah.
thing, and that's so great. And so what would you say to help people clarify and really, or let me say, crystallize their why power or their mission? Because, you talk about embrace the suck. This is exactly what the Navy SEALs do.
Yeah.
It's all about, like, they are so mission driven
Yep.
that they embrace the suck
Yep.
every darn day because it is sucky.
That's right.
And
Right.
they've literally strengthened
Right.
their ability to push
Mm-hmm.
through
Mm-hmm.
because their mission.
And let me just preface, that's why when I wrote the principles, this is mental fitness. I've been talking about this since 2008, before people even realized, but you've got to work on these skills. So when it hits, just like the Navy SEAL, they're on mission. So I write about mission. I write about how to write your mission, about how to get to that why. Because when the hits come, because they will come, when you understand your hardwiring, when you understand to take all of that's happening and receive it as feedback to fuel you, and then you move to why power over willpower, that first part of the principles is literally building your emotional foundation. Because when the hits come, you're going to be so much more solid and prepared, just like the SEALs. When they go in battle, it is chaos everywhere, but they are locked in. Soldier, what is your mission? Why are you here? And they stay the course. That is literally playbook for us. Get the formula
Absolutely.
and then create this playbook. So when it comes, you stay on mission and you don't fall apart. Because what I want is people to build mental resiliency. Because if we fall apart with every hit we get, sugar, we're never going to be able to all like rise up the vibration of the world and do good work in this world, because we have no grit. So the only way you build it is to build the solid foundation and keep putting yourself in some challenging situations, not cause yourself problems, but I mean, have that difficult conversation when you want to retreat, lean into it, speak your voice when you feel uncomfortable, go in a cold plunge. There's ways to just start training yourself to do the hard work. And to go back to your answer on now why, if the soldiers know their mission because it's life or death, I promise you, you knowing your mission will help you so that you could make the most of your life so you're not dying while you're living. You literally are so focused on living while you're here. And the way to do that is to focus on your why. So the way you do that is just there. I wrote a simple chapter on this, but quickly you could just even go to Google, do a Google search or do a core value assessment. You could do either of these. Find out what core value literally lights you up. Like if we were at your 100th birthday toasting to you, it'd be like, Erica, what are you known for? So for mine, mine's greatness, awakening greatness. So to motivate, inspire, and awaken greatness in myself and others globally. That's my mission. That's my why. That's why I get up. So when I was going through my stroke or when my dad passed, my mom, I literally said, Dar, regardless of title, regardless who's in your life, regardless of finances, you still have to wake up and go do this. You have to serve others by giving the gift of your knowledge to help awaken what's great in them. Like, that's it. I didn't come here for me. And when we start realizing we literally did not come on this planet to have gluttony and to have whatever we want. Whatever you're blessed with, that is beautiful. Enjoy it all. Like, enjoy it. You worked for it. It was brought to you. But you didn't come here just to have great experiences. You literally came here on a mission to use your gift to serve people. That, when you start shifting and reframing to that, I promise you, when things happen, you're like, okay, well, it's happening because this is part of the mission. This is part of life.
Oh, that's great.
And that
It's part
reframe
of the
sets
journey.
you up for success.
Oh, it's so good. So powerful. Yeah. And I mean, I think that a lot of people don't think of that is they don't resort back to their why.
Right.
Like why are they doing, or why are they passionate about this, or why do I come alive when I do this? Like they never really think about all those things. And I think that's a great exercise in itself, is just writing those things. Like what makes you come alive, and what do you feel you have the gifts to help somebody else?
Right.
So it's like there's this saying, like your passion is for you, your purpose is for others.
Yes.
And I think it's so beautiful when you have that drive coming from that. It's the thing that pulls you up or rises you. And actually, I would love to talk about this because you help people step into their greatness. And so what do you feel is the difference between somebody that's extraordinary and somebody that's great? You know, they're good, they're great. Like they do good things, right? Or great things, but there's another level, and that's extraordinary. I think Tony Robbins says that the highest level is extraordinary.
What's the difference is what you're asking?
Yeah. What's the attributes or traits or qualities or
there's for
mindset?
sure patterns of greatness. I mean, this has been the study of my career. Is I study the patterns of greats, and I will tell you, they are number one. They do the mundane really well. So hear this through. They imagine, when I traveled with the Phoenix Suns as their mental skills coach, I watched every day like Groundhog's Day. Go to bed, get up. Get in the practice facility, watch video, do 100 shots of this, do this drill, stretch this, work. It is literally like Groundhog's Day every day to keep making the simple steps of their practice really good. Like when they could hone in and practice and make that really good, game time becomes easier. And Kobe was asked one time how he was using one of the shots he used in high school still in his pros. He's like, when you could do the mundane, pretty much is what he was saying really well. Like, why would I change something that's made me who I am? And I stay consistent in it. So that means certain things you just have to stay consistent in. So consistency and discipline to getting up, even when your emotions of wanting or not wanting to do it leave you or don't, you still have to do it. So taking care of your health, you still have to get up and go do it, whether you want to or not, to be honest. It shouldn't be a choice for you. And we allow ourselves, do I want to? Well, do you want to be healthy? Good to great. A relationship, sometimes you're going to have to do things. If you do the love languages with your partner, this assessment, your love language may be quality time. Theirs might be acts of service. You may not want to do the acts of service, but by doing that for them, it lights them up and then it serves the relationship. It serves both of you. My point is that you have to put in the work. It's effort. And people just think it's easy to do everything. No, everything's on the other side of hard. And we don't want to hear that, but
Exactly.
we're in a comfort crisis. Part of what's breaking us down is if this isn't comfortable, then I don't want to do it. Well, life isn't comfortable. Like relationships take input, effort, attitude, consistency, your career. If I wouldn't be where I am today without consistency, sacrifice. I've had to sacrifice a lot of things to get where I am, and time with people that I love. But now I'm able to do the work at the level that allows me a little bit more freedom. So it all depends on what your goals are, truly. But I will tell you, there has never been a great I've met that has not sacrificed, put in the work, has been consistent, is disciplined, is honestly a little bit probably obsessive to some extent about making it great. There's a mindset, it's a growth mindset. So listen, if you just want to coast through life, that's totally up to you. I'm probably not your coach, that's for sure, because I'm going to push to greatness and you're going to be like, okay, you're annoying me now. But I don't want people to accept average. And let me give one quick example. I walked into Chipotle after speaking one night in Washington, D.C. I had flown out there. It was 8 o'clock. You could tell they were closing up. I was starving. I just wanted chicken and like rice, but it was so dry from sitting out there. I asked the guy, do you mind if I have some guacamole? He's like, it's in the back. And I thought, oh, okay, well, he's probably going to go get it. And he just stared at me. I said, so you're not getting it? He's like, no, lady, we're almost closing. I was like, okay, well, do you have dressing? Anything to pour on this? Because it's as dry as a desert. And so he's like, no, I don't. And so I said, okay, is this for real? You're actually not going to go get me any of this? And I thought that's where I was, at a place to get food. He's like, no, we're closing. And I thought, this is the acceptance. This is like an average mentality of I'm only going to do what I need, and that's all you're getting. That's never going to move the world forward. It's not going to help us. So we need to continue to show what greatness looks like so we can keep showing the next generation of what to be aspire to.
100%. I think this is so important for us adults that are listening to this show. It's like you are example for somebody else, meaning either your peers or even your children. Like this is literally like 101 for living life, and to be like you said, you're living your life instead of like letting your life wilt away, you know? So it's so good. I think that's so important to say. Like, I think we're in a comfort crisis. Like so many, I think we're partly wired, right, to remain comfortable.
Sure.
But if we seek to live a great life, we have to get uncomfortable, and it's so critical. And so, and I love that example that you gave, because that was clearly what he's like, I'll just do the bare minimum. We're closing and I'm ready to go.
Yeah. I was like, oh my gosh, like, no, not how the world could go.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So you talk about grittiness a lot and how we should all get gritty, but I'm curious, do you think grittiness is it different than resilience, or can you explain what do you mean by grittiness and why will that serve us in becoming our greatest self?
Gritty is staying in it. Gritty is not running from difficulty. Gritty is understanding everything's on the other side of hard. And if you want to build this muscle of grittiness, which is like resilience, so you get more resilient, as you endure, and this grittiness in you, which means you could handle it better. So it's like anything. Let me go to just a simple example. When I first got in the cold plunge at 5 degrees, of course, what's the first thing your body wants to do? Get out. It's like, this is too hard, fight or flight, get out. The more you train in this, the more your body's like, oh, this is cold, but I understand this now. Like, I don't like this, but I understand it. We're going to get through it. And then it doesn't become as hard, which is how you increase your minutes. This is a metaphor for life, that when you are in something, in order to develop this muscle, you have to get used to being in it. So difficult conversations. This is really hard for people. Using your voice when you have to negotiate something, asking for what you want, but it's uncomfortable until you keep trying. Public speaking, when people have to speak. Well, the only way you get better is by putting yourself in the situation of speaking, presenting. When I work with athletes, a buzzer beater shot. Well, the only way we can get them better to be comfortable mentally to handle that pressure is to keep putting them in that situation that has the pressure. You don't develop that mental resiliency and grittiness unless you are in the situations. So again, to build grit and muscle, you have to put stress and strain on it. Not all stress is bad for us, by the way. Please understand that not all stress is bad. Some forms of stress are really good. So when we stress our muscles in the gym, it builds a bigger muscle. When we stress our mental muscles in a good way, like I'm saying, cold plunge, difficult conversation, doing that public speaking event, getting yourself more comfortable with getting out there, the buzzer beater shot, the presentation, taking on the next level of work. Those are good things. You can't build resiliency, endurance, and mental buoyancy without taking on more of this stress and pressure in a good way, in a loaded way. You could load properly on this.
I think it's so important. The cold plunge is one of the best tools. And you could also, again, you don't have to have a full bath to do it. You could do it with the shower, 1 minute cold.
Yeah.
And even if you want to cheat a little bit, you could start off hot and then turn it to cold the last minute. It's such a great tool and a lot of physical benefits. But the reason why a lot of people do it is the mental benefits, because it truly is. Nobody likes doing it, but they know after that, they've just created a win. And with a stack of wins, you're creating more confidence, competence, and that resilience muscle. So it's so key. As we know, like we'll always, as we talked about early on, like it's not if we're going to have struggles in life, it's when, right? And so, I mean, COVID was a very good example, and some people came out better because of it. Probably a lot came out better, but obviously there was a lot of turmoil, a lot of hardships, a lot of sadness and all that. But, I think that, so some of the principles you talked about are super key. Embracing the suck, I think, is a powerful one. That there's a reason why that's principle one. What are some of your other principles shared in the book that you feel are essential to learn and to put into our life?
I think
today
there's, let me say one of the other ones that we talked about, why power. So embrace the suck. We talked about why power over willpower. And then another one would be reframing setbacks. One of the best tools you could do is to help your brain understand how to reframe things to what is truth, not as false. So when a situation comes, you don't catastrophize something. A simple example is a player got done playing and he came off and he's like, Dar, I suck. I'm so bad. And I said, mentally, if you keep saying that, we're going to stay in this state, right? And I said, he goes, did you not see the game? I said, oh, the game sucked, but you don't. That's a bad game. You're not a bad person. Big difference, okay? So relating it to everyday life, you could have a bad day, a bad presentation. You could have tripped up even. But here's the thing. One time, a couple times, you're still wanting to learn and get better. That's part of life, okay? It's going to happen. You're not a bad person. So let it go. Learn from it and let it go. Don't make one situation your whole life is bad. So just because you had a bad day, even honestly with what we've all gone through, a couple bad years doesn't mean a bad life. Like, look, we're on the other side. I promise you, anything you've ever gone through, you're already on the other side of it, or you're getting to the other side. So you have a great stat in your favor of bounce back resiliency. So lean on that and then reframe things. I had someone just text me saying, I had probably one of the worst games of my life. This is terrible. I let everyone down. And I said, hold up, I need you to reframe this. And now we've worked together long enough. I said, what's the reframe? What's truth and what's false? I said, so what's false right now? Well, that I'm the worst player. What's false right now? That everyone's upset with me. Great. What's the truth to that? So anytime you go through something, literally sit yourself down and go, hold up, what is truth and what is false? Because we're feeding ourselves more lies than we are truth. And that's what keeps us stuck in a mental hamster wheel, which takes us down, which leads to depression, which leads to suicide. Truly, when we get stuck on these thoughts. So I'm trying to get people to use this mental fitness tool so that we could prevent going down that rabbit trail and we could prevent losing people.
Absolutely. I think that step alone is so big, is really like, if you look for it, you will find it. Like, you will find truth, you'll find the false and you'll find the truth. And obviously, like you said, like we're telling ourselves lies all the time. The one thing I want to talk about is identity, because I think that's a big part. And I'm sure with you that you deal with a lot of athletes, identity is huge in the sports. So when somebody has, let's say, they have an injury and a setback in the sports, and they're out of the game, I'm sure you've dealt with people like that. How have you helped them in the identity of,
Mm-hmm.
maybe now not being a
Mm-hmm.
player? I assume you've had
Oh, yeah.
incidents like that.
Here's the thing. Again, I try to get them to focus on bigger than them. So, one, if it's an injury, I'll say, okay, every player in history of sports has had an injury. So your injury is not your final setback, okay? You're going to have a comeback, and you get to decide on how you want to come back from this. And it starts today based on your mindset. So I get them right into a mindset of, we're going to utilize this for good. So that helps them with that. Number two is identity. I'll say, okay, just so you know, while you're playing this sport, you getting baskets or numbers or goals, that's one part of your life, but it's not the only thing you're known by. Are you known by how you are a teammate? How you shown up? Who are you as a person? How could you serve in the community? So you're not just known for buckets, goals, passes, strikeouts. You're known for something bigger, which is, who are you? Who are you as the person? Get the world to see the person, not just the athlete. And now we have momentum. So once we make that shift, they're
Yeah.
like, oh, because I'm creating.
Sorry. The
Oh, that's okay.
alarm's going off. Sorry about that.
Oh, gosh, as long as you're.
Hopefully that will shut off soon.
If not, it's okay. We got to learn to stay agile.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Roll with how, and then my dog's barking.
That's okay.
So,
We could close it out on
yeah.
that if you want.
So regardless, you always have them reframe and look at the positive of really the truth of everything. Like you're not just this one thing.
No,
And so really everybody could apply that into
every.
their life.
Yes, remember, you're showing all of who you are. You're not just the CEO. You're not just the entrepreneur. You're not just the postman. The whatever it is that you're doing, you are more than that. It's who you are.
Yeah. So sorry about this noise, but we'll try to wrap up
Yeah.
soon. But the other thing I want to talk about that I think is important is our environment and how that could either serve us or hurt us.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how would you suggest people? Yay! How would you suggest people cultivate environment that not only serves them and helps their potential, like help them move into their greatness, but also prevents them falling back and resorting back to what's comfortable?
Yeah. So your environment plays so much to help propel you forward, pull you back. And that could be people, places, things, your setting, all of it. So if you keep tripping up and going backwards because you're around the people that keep taking you backwards, because by being around it, you slip into old patterns, that's on you. You've got to change your environment in order to change your life. So shift the people that are around you that are not serving you. It's not that you don't love them. You have to own your life. Listen, at the end of the day, they're probably not going to be around. So when you're sitting there and you're in regret because you didn't change your life because you didn't want to hurt their feelings, think about that. So it's not serving you. And you have to say, hey, I want to be able to elevate my world. I need to take this action. So watch the people, watch the thoughts, watch the things you listen to. If you're listening to YouTube videos, TikTok videos, whatever videos that honestly are feeding you something that's not serving you well, just know social media could be used for good or bad, but it picks up your algorithms. So if you stay in this conscious state of something that fuels your and it keeps frustrating you, it knows it's doing it. It's going to keep feeding you controversial things that trigger you.
Yeah,
So the more you keep watching it, the more it's going to fuel you in a negative way. Again, your environment matters. So watch what you're listening to, watch what's around you. I set up my environments. It doesn't matter where I am so that things are inspiring, the colors, the look. Like it could be a 2x4 area. I will make it look nice because it's going to fuel me. I have words around me. Spoken word and words have power. That's why they say speak life into things. Let me tell you, your environment is speaking life into you or not. So make it work for you.
Oh, so beautifully said. So, so true. And I think if we could give one exercise to somebody like over the weekend
Yeah.
when you listen to this is maybe clean up your environment. Like if you have a desk, like we know that when there's chaos around us, we become chaotic in our minds. So I think there's one thing you could do immediately is refine your environment
Yeah.
to make sure you're eliminating the things that
Mm-hmm.
don't serve you and then
Mm-hmm.
adding in that will.
Mm-hmm.
One more question, and then I'll close off. But because I think this is one thing I struggle with, and I know one thing for people to step into greatness, we have to be able to receive feedback
Yeah.
and seek feedback
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes we can't see the forest through the trees, right?
Yeah.
So, and I know I struggle with this personally. My partner always tells me this.
Mm-hmm.
So, because sometimes we're resistant. Like sometimes we
Yeah.
think, like, oh, this is me, and I know this is the best route or whatever. So, what would you suggest for seeking feedback and obviously being able to receive it and then possibly implement it? What would you say? Like, why is
Yeah.
this so
It's
important?
it's principle number 3, 2, 3. That's how important it is. Because listen,
Mm,
in order to get better and grow, you have to be able to seek and apply feedback. Again, from a trusted circle. I'm not seeking applying feedback from people on social media that have no idea day-to-day life. They have no idea. So if they don't like something or like whatever, it doesn't matter. They're not in my day-to-day life. And I tell the players that all the time. But here's the thing, the pros have to seek and apply feedback while they're doing it. While they're in
mm,
action, they're getting told, change this. You've got to do better at this. If they can't accept that, they're off the team, okay? They're not growing. So if the pros have to do that, why would we not mentally shift to going, why can I seek and apply feedback in real time in my relationship? Why can I seek and apply feedback in my business world? If I can't do this, then I'm blocking right now because of pride, fear,
yeah.
rejection, all the uncomfortable feelings that come with it. Now, if they have merit for what they're saying and they love you and it's trusted circle, then you need to hear it because you can't get better at it. But and in business world, we do a once a year performance review. That's ridiculous. And people have a breakdown when they're like, oh my gosh, I got my review this year. And I'm like, once a year, you got a review? You should be having it like monthly. They're like, what? And I'm like, oh, the fact that you have this discourse with it means you got to lean into it more, because imagine if you could get feedback. So if you're getting feedback every month, it makes it easier by the end of the year because you've course corrected. Why would you want to wait a whole year to course correct, which could lead to honestly you being worse at your job or your relationship or whatever it is? So feedback helps you course correct in real time to make it better. And again, everything's done. That's a whole way to learn how to seek and apply feedback, because when you're giving feedback, you really need to do, like, go watch Ted Lasso, okay? If you go watch Ted Lasso, you'll see how great Ted is so good at being able to do this. But it really is an art form on seeking it and applying it, but also I'll say giving feedback. So make sure when you give it, it's not with a certain tone. There's not an edginess. You're not trying to prove something. But when you're
Mm,
really delivering feedback to someone, deliver it in a way that really they want to hear it, so then they can take it and they grow. Because if you really care about them, you'll care about how you deliver it so that they use it for good. But we want people to
absolutely.
lean into this.
It's so good it's so good for you to drive that home too of how it could really influence.
It
Like
does.
it's having a growth mindset, like
It is.
by applying feedback or at least letting, hearing and seeking feedback,
Yeah.
you then have the ability to again adjust
Yeah.
where needed if it's something,
Yeah.
valuable that it could drive you forward.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Coach Dar, I love you.
Thank you.
What you're sharing today, you're so inspiring, and then also it's. I don't think there's anybody that doesn't need your book, The Art of Bouncing Back. I know it's available now. You could get it pretty much
Mm-hmm.
everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Amazon, of course, I'll plug it in the show notes and everything. And then I highly recommend you go check out her website. She has so many resources as well. And, you've been doing this for a long, long time and you speak around the world and you really are, like I said, a very powerful speaker. And there's nobody that doesn't need this because
Right.
again, it's not if, it's when
Yeah.
we're going to have a setback.
Yeah.
And we need to learn how to rise from it and build that
Mm-hmm.
grittiness muscle and our resilience muscle, and also our confidence in ourselves that we can rise above our challenges. So I just want to ask, obviously, everybody to follow Coach Dar. I believe it's Coach Dar on your socials.
CoachDar.com for website, and the Coach Dar, so THE, the Coach Dar. Follow along because I put mental fuel up there every day.
Amazing. Of course, everything will be in the show notes. So just to ask you my closing question, and I mean, you've shared so much wisdom already, but if you were to share a piece of wisdom, a life lesson that you've learned along your journey that you just feel everybody needs to hear right now, what would that piece of wisdom be?
Whatever adversity hits you is not final. It's part of the process. It's not the whole process. Your life is a 30 for 30 in the making, a movie, a show that for sure will be played back. So make it one that you're proud of. And part of making it one you're proud of is not giving up. It's staying through it. It's working through it. And it's showing people greatness. And greatness is not what you achieve. Greatness is how you live, that it inspires someone else. So make it a life that inspires someone.
Ah, such a beautiful message. I'm going to get that printed out and put it on my wall. That's so beautiful. This has been such an honor. I so appreciate you spending
Thank
the
you.
time. And I can't wait to see you, by the way. I'm getting to see this
Yeah.
person in person next week, which will be before this episode is released. But I'm just so happy to spend more time with you and get to know you more and just experience life with you.
Yeah.
So
Thanks
thank
for
you
having me
again
on.
so much. You're so welcome. Appreciate you.